Chickadee check. All right, so we're back. Different gear. Man, y'all missed out on about good 30-45 minutes of me imparting just all sorts of wisdom. But we're back. We're going to try to finish this stack up. Don't have a whole lot left to do, but some. Kind of pick up where we left off. I'll tell you one thing, temperatures dropped in the last little bit. I was saying earlier that as long as the sun's out, well, y'all didn't hear that part. As long as the sun's out, we can get away with some pretty cool temps up here. As soon as that sun starts to disappear, it's behind a bunch of clouds right now. Man, it starts getting cool. Not like it was yesterday. Anyway. Oh, here we go. So what I was saying before we were so rudely interrupted, slightly ironic and counterintuitive that, there we go, that's what I was looking for, that big trees, within reason, can be easier to cut, fall, drop, than smaller trees, you know, trees that are 10 inches in diameter or so. Because you just got less room to get the bar of the chainsaw in there. Ah, I missed. It's gonna be a mess when it finally goes. Got less room to get the bar in there and get your face cut in and get your back cut in. And if it's something that you need to get wedges in to push over, smaller trees can be aggravating to work on because there's not room for all that stuff in the tree. It's kind of the same thing for splitting wood. Smaller stuff's hard to make it stand up on the stump sometimes. And you got to be a little bit more precise when you whack it, because it's easier to miss because it's smaller. How's that? Imparting wisdom. Oh. So I've ended up using this bigger maul. Ooh, maybe more than I had intended or thought that I would. I don't ever usually have like intentions about what I'm going to use. I just use what works. Kind of the way this has worked out today. Run in a lot more than I thought I was going to. How about to say it like that? Yep. My split stump's all busted up, chewed up. Which isn't helping me out any. Dogs got tired of ripping and running. They're in the house now, taking a nap. My wife's going to be here shortly with 2 more dogs that are/were my daughters, and who, if they can behave, get along with the other 3 dogs that we got now. I guess they'll be living here permanently, so we'll be up to 5 dogs. Not the way I thought things were going to work out. But, like I say, you know, if they'll act right, it's all good. If they don't act right, back to daughter they go. So, for those of you who don't know, I I heat my fairly large 2-story house primarily with wood. Probably a couple of years, 3 years back, 3 years back, I bought a Yodel, J-O-T-U-L stove, wood burning stove. And it was the biggest one I could find at the time. Well, the biggest one I could find. And right at the time I was buying that stove, basically it discontinued this model due to some EPA emissions, not upgrades, requirements. There we go. So this was last of the older model stove that didn't meet those requirements, which I can only think that, I think they might have been efficiency requirements. The new ones sound good, but I feel like there's probably a snake in that EPA wood pile. So I wanted one of the older ones, and I was able to source one out of North Carolina. Bought the thing sight unseen over the telephone. It's kind of funny too, because the sales guy, he didn't argue with me, but he asked me like 5 times, "Are you sure you want to put this on your credit card?" Like, here's my take my credit card number down and make that my stove. It's kind of funny. I didn't quite have to argue with him to get him to sell me the stove, but he was not too quick to just do it. Anyway, so case in point, old stove versus new stove. So even the one that I got, which is not that ancient, I mean, it's 1 generation back or whatever, it really wants to use dry seasoned wood. And that's fine. You should be burning dry seasoned wood for a lot of different reasons. This stove does okay. There you go, just never know. This wood does okay with wood that's not completely dry. But I suspect these newer versions that the EPA graced us with, I bet they don't do well at all with wood that's not completely seasoned and dry. And sometimes, you know, things can work out where you just don't have that, and you got to burn what you got. And so, all that to say, I'm happy with my stove. It was a good buy. Pretty stinking expensive. Very expensive. But literally a one and done kind of thing. There's nothing on it to wear out or tear up or anything like that, other than the gaskets, which almost came from the factory that had to fix up and replace. Not sure what that was about. So yeah, I'm behind the 8 ball on this wood thing, but I think we're gonna be okay. This wood that I'm working on here came from a guy who hauls logs, and I bought these a few months ago. Bought a whole truckload of logs. When I say truck, I mean a flatbed, stake bed truck, I had to pick up pretty good load of logs. And he said that they had been cut several months ago and just been sitting in a wood yard somewhere. You can tell they've been sitting because there's dirt all over them, and that didn't help the chainsaw when I was cutting them any anyway. So he brought them here, dumped them. I was kind of nibbling away at them, bucking them up to length. As I got time, about a tank of gas at a time, meaning, I don't know, that's 20 or 30 minutes of cutting. That's all that I have. We'll get to that in another episode. And I was just kind of casually plinking away at it. Again, that was a few months ago. And then it got cold. And then I started burning wood. And so we've got this 8-foot long wood rack on the back porch. Came straight out of China. It's 8 foot long, 4 feet high. And a few weeks ago, filled that dude up. Like, all right, let's see how long it takes us to burn this. Well, that was right before cool snap. When I say cool, highs in the 40s, lows in the 20s or teens. And it took us, I think, 10 days to burn through all that wood. And we, you know, trying not to be stupid about it, but not being super conservative either. Trying to stay comfortable, trying to stay warm. It's going to be a long winter. And so yeah, 10 days. So then when I start looking at the stacks of wood I got out here, 4x8, I got a little over 3 months of wood out here. And this is early December. It won't warm up until March. So we're gonna be cutting it, not too close, but kind of close with the wood we got. But again, this was supposed to be next season's wood that I'm splitting now. So I was, like I say, I was just picking away at it, thinking I had more or less a year before we had to burn this stuff. I was wrong. So that right there kind of ends up being what this channel's about. Keep all the homeboys updated on what's going on up the road here. You homeboys know who you are. And B, kind of chronicling, tracking my working through going from being a kind of a southern redneck to a Appalachian hillbilly. And not that I'm authority on this, but I have it on good authority. It is Appalachian, not Appalachian. Think about throwing an apple at you. You'll have it. So we're getting there. That's most of the big stuff. Got a couple more pieces on these. Split. So, but oddly enough, this whole thing right here kind of really gives you a pretty good look, actually, into day-to-day stuff around here. Meaning, I thought I was probably going to be doing one thing today. Ended up doing this. Kicker on that is it's supposed to start raining about 8 o'clock tonight, I think. And it's going to rain pretty much off and on, I think pretty much on for the next 3 days. So really want to get this split and stack before that kicks off. I've actually got another stack of wood over here. Yeah, one more stack. Call that one 8 foot long by 5 feet tall. That I need to get split and restacked. This, and that came out of the same load as all this stuff. I've got about, I don't know, it ain't as much as this, but I got a little bit more over by the house. It's buck to length. Like I say, I was just chipping away at it over there and splitting it, and I'm fixing to have to get after it. All right, let's see if I can get you guys turned around here for a little bit of stacking action. Woo-hoo. So kind of what we got going here is this wood pile is 100 yards from the house. And this, I don't know, 6 foot area, there's a barbed wire fence here. I don't know if you can see it, but right a foot behind the wood stack is barbed wire fence. And that fence about 6 feet out was man briars and all kind of nasty mess. And but the thing is, the ground, the grade bumps up a few inches from where you're sitting to right here, and it's relatively dry through here, and it's relatively damp over there. And not that the wood stacks are sitting on the ground to start with, they're up on cinder blocks and landscape timbers, but it's a little bit nicer to work over here than it is compared to over there. Anyway, so I had to get the brush cutter and clear all this out, and it's pretty nice. I got all these little stobs that I'm trying to walk on. I've got to go back and clean up with the brush cutter, but really cleaned out pretty nice. When I get all this done, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a pretty good setup. Back over behind us is a Christmas tree farm. Now, if you ain't from around here, that might sound kind of romantic. Oh, Christmas tree farm. Love me some Christmas trees, right? Yeah, we all do. But, so around here, the Christmas tree farms are probably not even looked on as favorably as pine plantations back where I'm from. You know, they're okay, but who wants to live next to a pine plantation, just rows of planted pines? But the real kicker is on the Christmas tree farm is they are heavily, they use a lot of chemicals on Christmas tree farms, keep insects and whatnot, I don't know what all, off of them. Which again, that in itself is an issue. But here, so the Christmas trees are up on a hill back over here. Everything runs down that way to our creek right over there. So ultimately, where all those chemicals end up, in that creek. And that's the real knock on Christmas tree farms, is the chemicals getting into the water table. Not to mention, anecdotally, people who raise bees will tell you that, oddly enough, about the time they start spraying on the Christmas tree farm, the bees die. What a coincidence. So I suppose there's worse things you can look at than a Christmas tree farm, but it is what it is. You can't hardly get away from them up here out in the country like we are. It's what people do. And the kicker is, it's not even the landowners that run the farms. So like this property owner here, they've leased out their farm, their property to a big corporate outfit that raises them. And so yeah, it's big business, huge business. I suppose we're fortunate that this is a relatively small patch right here. And it's the only patch in close proximity to me. And who knows, I mean, I don't know. These things probably got to grow another 5-8 years before they harvest them. Maybe the property owner won't renew the lease when they finally harvest them, and it'll go back to being just pasture. Much rather have cows and Christmas trees next door. Cows bring their own set of problems, especially when people don't maintain their fence. Cows like to come visit, get out in the road and everything else. But life in the big city, such as it is. So one of my rants that didn't make it onto the, one of my other rants that didn't make it onto the video earlier is gloves. Man, I can forevermore wear the fingers out of gloves. See that? Every pair I've got, that's what I got going on, and oddly enough, it ends up being a right hand first. It's the fingertips. The rest of the gloves pretty good shape. Fingertips wear out. And guess what you grab with? Fingertips. I started to duct tape these things up before I got out here, and then I didn't do it, so here I am. I don't even really know if that'd be a good solution or not, but it don't cost much to try it. I do have to say, with all the different stages of wood processing, firewood processing, stacking is probably my least favorite part of the job. I think some people who are like super OCD and really do a good job at this probably enjoy it and take a lot of pride in it. I'm just happy when the stack don't fall over. Oh yeah, I mentioned earlier, and again, it didn't make it on the video. I don't know if I'm right about this, but when you got wood that is that shape, so we got the triangle wedge thing going. That seems to stack better than wood that's only been split once. It's got this big flap on it. It makes sense. That triangle part will wedge down in there, find a crack somewhere, kind of wedge up in there, and those flaps just kind of float on top and get kind of, I don't know, not slippery, but they just don't rip as good as those triangle shaped parts. But depending on the log size, what you're trying to do, you're going to end up with some that are flat. Cost of doing business. So one thing, we'll see how this works out. I had actually sat down and drawn up plans for a woodshed out here, and it went through a couple different iterations. Before I finally got to the point of going, you know what? Well, I drew up plans. I was about getting ready to buy lumber, and I got sidetracked as usual before I got the lumber. And I ended up having to buy a piece of metal roofing, just one piece, for another project. And that stinking piece of roofing, so it's 3 feet wide, 8 feet long, $40, 40. Well, it was going to take a lot more than one piece to do the roof on this thing, and so that kind of backed me up a little bit. But ultimately, and I was about halfway there before I even got into the cost of the metal, because what we got going in is here, this face of the wood pile faces south. So that means most of the time the sun's coming up somewhere over there, arcing over, and right now it's right over there. And so when it's not cloudy, man, this thing's getting full sun all day. And maybe, I don't know if you can tell, but even before I split this stuff and it was sitting there on this other wood pile, man, it was already drying out and checking up pretty good for what it was, you know, for being unsplit wood. So that was already pretty encouraging, and you know, had me second guessing about even fooling with a woodshed. And because rain, from what I can tell, I mean, it gets the wood wet, but it ain't the same wet as green wood. Different kind of wet, and that's really just surface and superficial. So yeah. And then in addition to the getting full sun all day every day, so that way south, that means that way's north. So most of our weather comes from over there, so the wind's coming through. And so like right now, wind's hitting me in the face, which is kind of southeastish. But usually we've got some kind of air movement, some kind of wind going, sometimes a lot, sometimes not very much. Right now it's a pretty decent breeze. So with all that, it dries pretty well, surprisingly well. to the point of, you know what, I think I can just go full ghetto on this. I'll put that tar paper back on it, weight it down with some wood or rock or something, and see how she does. And you know, I may get through the season and go realize, yeah, no, I need a woodshed, and we'll do a woodshed. That's what it works out to. But I kind of think we can get away without that. So another thing on firewood is sometimes, even up here, which people ought to know better, you'll see people with a wood stack, a wood pile, and it's completely covered in a tarp or plastic or whatever. I'm talking about just about hermetically sealed. And what that's going to give you eventually is moldy wood. It ain't going to dry because you got all this water that needs to gas off and evaporate off, and it can't do it because the plastic's holding all the moisture in. You just built a wood sauna, a wood pile sauna for your firewood stack, and it's just going to sit there and get moldy and probably start rotting at some point if you don't get out there. There's one guy in particular on the highway going to town. That's what he's got going on. He's got an outside boiler system, a wood boiler. They call them water stoves up here, which is a hard thing for me to latch onto that terminology. Water stove. But you go by his house and he's got that wood pile just strapped down with plastic and tarps. And I don't know. It ain't good. But so again, with the airflow and the wind flow, the sunshine and the wind flow, I think I'm okay. I'll cover the top just to shed the water, rainwater a little bit, which you probably don't have to do. But you want that wind getting in there and just enough to keep the rain off top of it. That's the master plan. So, so just moving up here from a much warmer climate. One of the things I've had to, I don't know, contend with or whatever is getting outfitted with new clothes. I have ditched a whole bunch of dress clothes. I'm down to 2 suits and a sport coat, maybe 2 sport coats. Got 2 pairs of dress shoes that are both pretty old, don't really fit well, and they're pretty beat up. But I'm having a hard time justifying new dress shoes because I don't plan on wearing them very much. To wit, I've bought 2 pairs of, I guess you'd call them Western boots since I got up here. A pair for church and a pair to wear stuff like this that are steel toed. And you know, I had hunting clothes that translate pretty well over into work stuff. But I think the final piece of the puzzle ooh, that's a shaky bunch of wood. I think the final piece of the puzzle is going to be a wool vest for Sunday, and then either either a heavy wool vest or a heavy wool coat for stuff like this on Mackinac. I do believe though that wool is where it's at. It's kind of weird. In my limited experience, wool, it doesn't keep you warm in the way that fleece does. You know, fleece, man, if it ain't like really cold, you can overheat in fleece and you're sweating in it and everything. Y'all distracted me, and my wood was all drifting this way. I gotta shove it back. Anyway, fleece, in my experience, can just overheat you, and you're sweating in it, and it's just, I don't know, it's not that great. It does keep you warm. But in my limited experience, wool just helps you thermoregulate. So I've got this wool pullover that I wear, and it's pretty good. It's a real fancy brand, Duckworth, out of Montana. And when I wear it, in fact, I should have it on right now, but when I wear it, I just tend to thermoregulate instead of it keeping me warm, if that makes any sense. Whoa. Y'all hang around long enough, y'all might get to see this whole wood pile fall over. That's just good TV right there. Ugh. Anyway, and it's antimicrobial, and wool doesn't stink. And I mean, don't tell anybody, but that wool pullover, I've had that thing for at least 2 years, maybe 3. Never washed it. When I feel like it needs some attention, I'll set it out in the sunshine, turn it inside out, and let all the stink burn off, and it never really has gotten stinky. Of course, it's an outer garment. But yeah, so low maintenance, comfortable when you're wearing it. Only downside to wool, it's not itchiness. There is that, but I've had some wool socks in the past, back in my Boy Scout days, and they were itchy and not a lot of fun to wear. But this stuff doesn't itch too bad. It doesn't itch at all. Downside's cost. Ooh, doggy. But when you think about what it takes to get it from the sheep, well, not even from the sheep, but from not even existing to raising the sheep, shearing it, spinning it, blah, 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 the whole process, getting it out to a final product, having it show up at your doorstep, as opposed to some, you know, plastic Coke bottle fiber that's being respun and turned into a jacket. Yeah, it's gonna cost a couple bucks, but I mean, as long as you don't let the moths get in it, moths, M-O-T-H, not M-O-S-S. Although moths might not be good for wool either, but anyway, that's almost an heirloom piece of clothing. It'll sure last you a lifetime if you take care of it, I think. So anyway, that's what I need to have to round out things, is a wool vest and a wool jacket. And I think I'll be fixed up pretty good. think. Yep, I'm gonna stop. You about caught me right then. One time I was walking up a set of stairs, going into a building that had a bunch of surveillance cameras everywhere, including on those stairs. And I let my toe catch the top edge of one of the stairs and just about busted it, you know, just about lost it. But I recovered. Anyway, a few minutes later, I ran into one of the guys that watches the cameras. He goes, "Hey, you want to see what you look like about to trip and fall on your face?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I got to do it in front of a worldwide audience here. And we ain't done yet. It can still happen. So the other thing when I'm stacking this stuff, if you can notice, I don't know if you can tell now, but I tend to stack with the bark up so that sheds any water that comes down. But I don't know if that matters or not. I just put this piece face up, but it ain't sitting the way I want. So one of the things that's kind of cool about here is the wildlife. I'm sitting here looking at a deer grazing right up the hill. Yesterday we just closed out gun season for deer here, and along with that, I think the rut has, if it ain't over with, it's dropping off pretty quick. But I'm sitting out here, not trying to be particularly quiet, running my yap, and there's a doe up the hill grazing. She knows I'm here. She doesn't care, which is cool. A couple weeks ago, actually it was end of first week in November. Man, we had the rut was, I guess, kicking in at that point. And all on this hill back here, we usually have deer out there grazing in the evening and in the morning. But early November, we had a couple of bucks running around out here. One was clearly bigger than the other. But amazingly enough, I didn't ever see them fight. They just ignored each other. The other thing about it, like during that same period of time, the presence of does had kind of tapered off a little bit. But when rut kicked in, man, all of a sudden they showed up again. There'd be, I don't know, 12, 14 does out here grazing around for, 2 hours before sunset. Just milling around. That's a pretty big group. Usually it's, 5 or 10 maybe. Kind of drifting in and out. Wood stacks always end up either running uphill or downhill. Hard to keep them going right. Anyway, so all these does showed up, surprisingly, and the buck showed up as well. I actually got to watch a buck breed a doe 60 yards from where I'm standing, right out in the plain open. It was starting to get dusk, but it wasn't near about dark. That was pretty cool. Learned then that I need to get me a better camera with a better lens on it to catch stuff further out. I got it on my iPhone, but I can tell what's going on, but you probably can't. Oh, there's a chunky monkey right there. Whew. Been better if that big one is on the bottom, but it didn't work out that way. So anyway, yeah, the wildlife up here can be pretty cool. Mostly deer, mostly bows. Well, I hope that pole don't break. So the plan is, when I get this other stuff stacked, split, I'll start another row right there and run another stack, but it'll only, I need to stop because this is only going to be about 4 feet high, but it's going to help bolster that post, that 4 post. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I would have been able to shove 2 down in there, and I probably should have. Again, live and learn. Becoming a hillbilly. Oh. Speaking of hillbillies, without going too far down this particular rabbit hole, I found a podcast the other day. And this will not surprise those of you who know me. But it's a guy who has his own podcast, and he co-hosts another one with Jocko, infamous Jocko. This guy's name is Darryl Cooper, D-A-R-R-Y-L, Cooper. This podcast is called Martyr Made, M-A-R-T-Y-R-M-A-D-E. Get that too much. That's what it's called. I think this cat used to be a Navy SEAL. Not really sure. He did work for the DOD for a period of time as an intelligence guy. But what I can say for sure is, man, that joker nerds clean out on history. And he's got this one podcast, and it's from a year or so ago. He didn't have a lot of podcasts out in the open. He's got a bunch of podcasts, I think, on Substack. Anyway, so this podcast is about, well, it's about mining in West Virginia, coal mining in West Virginia in the 1800s into the early 1900s, kind of wrapping up around 1920 or so. All I can say is this: I had no idea of the level of abuse that those coal miners suffered at the hands of the outfits that employed them. My goodness. And Cooper kind of says this in the podcast in so many words. Basically, man, these guys were half a click away from being slaves. And you're like, that can't be. Well, if you listen to the podcast and hear what he's got to say and believe what he says, it be unbelievable. So, already had a pretty healthy respect for people who do that kind of work in general. But man, listening to that podcast and understanding what just these generations of people went through just to try to keep themselves fed, it'll make you mad what was done to them, and B, for me, I came away with a much better appreciation and understanding for why we have unions. Unbelievable stuff. Anyway, you think I can get long-winded? Man, that guy, he's a machine. He sits at that microphone and goes for literally hours at a time. So if you got a road trip, it's pretty good stuff. I think the prologue to that, he's got a prologue podcast on the run up for episode 1, and that thing, the prologue is about an hour and a half. I think the actual podcast is 2.5, 3 hours. I've actually listened to it twice. I'll throw it on in the shop and play it in the background, and because I'm in and out of the shop dealing with dogs and whatever other stuff's going on, I miss stuff. So I go back and on my recent road trip, I played it again, and just to really make sure I was getting everything. Man, I'll tell you one thing. There are evil people in this world. Folks that have mistreated other people. What did he say? Without limits. For what? For $1. And I'm talking about putting families out of homes in the middle of rainy nights with small sick children, wives, and just throwing all their stuff out in the yard and laughing about it because we can for $1. And those people still walk among us today. Well, they don't walk among us, but they're around for sure, and you know their names. And I don't know if this is Mr. Cooper's intent or not, but his podcast seemed to center around those kind of situations. And man, if you're not careful, you can find yourself getting pretty spun up and pretty aggravated sometimes, listening to things that have gone on in the past. And it's not too hard to extrapolate that over into what's going on current day, which, you know, it makes me glad I am where I am. But I got family and friends who aren't here with me, and they got a longer road in front of them than me. And I don't know how this works out around here. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So, with that said, kids, make sure you have a way to heat your house. I'm getting there, slowly but surely. Y'all want to hear about the most stupidest thing there is? do as a human living in America, or anywhere really, but America in the 2000s. Go get yourself one of them thermostats that hooks up to the internet. Let me know how that works out for you. I know. It's cool to be able to sit there at the fancy restaurant and dial up your smart home and adjust the temperature by 2 degrees so it's just right when you get home. I got it. And you can call me paranoid if you want to, but you wait. Write it down somewhere. There's going to come a day where somebody's going to reach in there on that network and adjust that thermostat for you. And you ain't going to have anything to say about it. You can't do nothing but yell and scream and be mad and freeze or burn up, depending on where you're at. If I'm not mistaken, that's already happened over in Europe. Yeah, get yourself one of them networked thermostats. That's a good idea. All these people out there talking about sustainable energy. Here's an idea. Yourself a wood stove. That fuel nearly grows on trees. I wouldn't lie. Now, they may come with the government or powers that be, whatever you want to call them. Might decide that wood stoves pollute too much, blah, 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 blah. We got to outlaw them. And if I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong about this, but I think New York State maybe has tried to go down that road. Didn't go over too well. But, and I guess you could tune me up on my wood pile and tell me I got too much wood or something and come confiscate my wood. I got a whole bunch of trees right over there that I can do what I got to do with. And yeah, you can, oh, you got smoke coming out of his chimney. Okay. Well, at that point, yeah. But no, man, how hard is it with burning stove? No, it's not perfect. Yeah, it takes some work. But, yeah, man, it's the ultimate renewable energy. Plant a freaking tree, right? All right, so enough of that. My apologies for all that. I didn't mean to go down that particular rabbit hole, but it has been on my mind. You look at what's going on with the gas situation, natural gas over in Germany, with the Russian pipeline getting blown up. And those Germans about to be in for a rough winter, I'm afraid. And I would be willing to bet they'd give a lot for a wood stove right now. Just saying. Not that I got it figured out. I don't. But it just makes sense all in my head. Anyway, that doe's still grazing up there. Turn y'all around and see if y'all can see her. I don't know if it'll pick it up or not. I'm gonna have to, that's about as high as I want to go with that stack. I've still got a little bit left to do. And that's over there what I got left to split, kind of.